Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to dig into a research report that makes a pretty wild claim. What if our ancient DNA is actually pre-wired for us to succeed in the 21st century?
So, the report we're looking at today, it doesn't just ask this question, it screams yes. It argues that for some of us, there's a powerful direct line from the pressures our ancestors faced to the genetic traits that might just be perfect for today's world.
So to get our heads around this, we're going to follow the report's own roadmap. We'll start with the core idea, the big premise. Then, we'll see how they apply it to things like our brains, our societies, our health, and even how we might face the challenges of the future. Okay, so the whole argument, everything we're about to talk about, is built on one single really important biological concept. And that concept is called pre-adaptation. The idea is that a genetic trait that evolved for one thing, say thousands of years ago, doesn't just disappear. Instead, the report argues it can find a totally new, maybe even more powerful purpose right here, right now in the 21st century. And here is where the report really draws a line in the sand. It sets up two very different evolutionary paths. On one hand, it suggests European ancestry was forged by things like hunting in the cold. On the other, it says East Asian ancestry was shaped by the unique pressures of large-scale farming and intense social cooperation. This distinction, well, according to the source, it's the key to everything else. So, with that foundation laid, where does the report go next? Straight to the brain. It asks a pretty simple question. What kind of mind is best equipped for our modern, knowledge-based world?
Now, to answer that, the source points to something called a polygenic score for edge years. You can kind of think of it like a genetic scorecard for traits that are associated with how far someone goes in school. The report claims these scores are higher in East Asian populations, and even speculates this could be linked to centuries of social pressures, like the famous, incredibly difficult Imperial Civil Service exam.
And look at how specific this gets. We're not just talking about general intelligence. The report drills down to individual genes it claims are tied to very specific skills. Analysis, logic, the exact kind of thinking that's critical in science and tech fields today.
Okay, now here is where things take a really interesting turn. We all think of being nearsighted, myopia, as a problem, right? It's just a flaw you need glasses to fix.
But the report says, hold on, what if we're looking at this all wrong? It argues that the very same genes connected to myopia are also linked with higher IQs and more years in school. So from this point of view, nearsightedness isn't a bug. It's a feature, and an evolutionary side effect of selecting for a certain kind of brain power.
All right, so the report's made its case about the individual mind. Now it zooms out. It starts looking at the genetics of society itself. How do millions upon millions of people manage to live together in these huge, dense, but stable cities?
The argument here focuses on one gene in particular, MAOA. You might have heard of it. Certain versions of it have been nicknamed the warrior gene in some studies because they're linked to things like impulsivity. The report hones in on this as a potential biological key to social stability. And this is the data the report presents to back that up. It shows a really striking difference in how common one of these low-activity MAOA variants is across different populations. Based on this, it argues that the fact this allele is almost non-existent in Asian males could be a genetic factor contributing to what it describes as higher social harmony.
So we've done brains, we've done society, let's move on to health. The report also claims that our genetics can act like a built-in shield against some of the unique health problems of modern life. It uses the classic example of the Asian flush, and it breaks it down into a really simple two-step process. Basically, a combo of genes makes your body create a toxic byproduct of alcohol really fast, but then it gets rid of it really slow. The result? That uncomfortable flushing feeling.
And you see the pattern here, right? Just like with myopia, the report takes what seems like a negative and flips it on its head. It says this uncomfortable reaction is actually a powerful, natural deterrent. It even calls it an anti-alcoholism gene that protects people from the massive problems that come with alcohol abuse. And for the final piece of the puzzle, the report doesn't just stick to the present. It looks ahead. It points to one specific gene variant it believes is a pre-adaptation for the single biggest challenge on our horizon. The gene is called EDAR, and one particular version of it is found in over 90% of East Asians. 90%! The source basically calls this a massive genetic signature for that population. Now, this one gene does a bunch of different things. It affects hair, teeth, all sorts of stuff. But the report says its most important effect, the one that really matters for our future, is that it increases the number of sweat glands.
And here's the final connection it makes. It links that trait directly to climate change. The argument is dead simple. More sweat glands means a better personal cooling system. And from there, the source concludes this gives a population a real physical advantage in a warming world. So, when you put it all together, all these different threads, the report makes its big final claim. It argues that this whole collection of traits, for the mind, for society, for health, it adds up to what it calls an Yoseon Benban, an optimized version that's uniquely ready for the world we live in and the world we're heading into.
And that's really where this whole analysis leaves us. When a source describes a set of human traits as an optimized version, what does that even mean? It really pushes us to ask some tough questions about our genes, our world, and what the future of human diversity is going to look like.